Hello and welcome to episode 36 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. Today we will be continuing the fun project we started last week. In episode 35, Marissa from Chicago and I started our countdown of each of our 50 favorite things at Walt Disney World in honor of the resort's 50th anniversary back on October 1st. We both went from number 50 to number 26. Today we move from 26 to 11 before we wrap up the entire conversation next week with our respective top 10 lists. Marissa and I thought this would be a special way to honor this milestone birthday for the most magical place on Earth. After that, our friend Jillian will join us to talk about her experiences at Epcot on October 1st and 2nd for the 50th anniversary. Of course, I am an authorized Disney vacation planner with Ear to There Travel. My services are always 100% free to you, and a $200 deposit can lock in your next Walt Disney World or Disneyland vacation. I also work on Disney Cruise Line, Adventures by Disney, Alani, Universal Orlando Resort, Universal Hollywood, and almost any other travel location you could want. Using me as your travel planner really helps the show, and you could have as much or as little control as you would like. Contact me at rick@eartotheretravel.com, rick@eartotheretravel.com, or 727-507-3123, 727-507-3123. Right now, let's resume our conversation with Marissa from Chicago. How are you doing today, friend?
I am fabulous. How are you doing?
I am excellent. Today we are continuing our 50 favorite things at Walt Disney World in honor of Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary, which just happened last week. I was pleasantly surprised with our episode last week where we went from number 50 to 26 because when we discussed this, it was just sort of something we decided to do at the spur of the moment. And I really, really liked our first 25 entries each. I thought we really nailed the spirit of what we're trying to do here. And I am so excited to hear you go from number 25 to number 1 and to share mine. So let's get right into it. Number 25 through number 21.
All right, perfect. So 25, I have the UK Pavilion. Especially that little back area where you can sit with the little benches. 24, I have Spaceship Earth. 23 is the People Mover. 22 is Haunted Mansion. And 21 is Tiffin's.
Everything that you just mentioned, except for that back area of the UK Pavilion, is way, way too low. You have some of the best things in Walt Disney World, and you have them this low on the list.
I feel like especially the top 25, everything I could switch up and be like, oh, it's a top 10, it's a top 5. They're all so good.
So I want to talk about, because this is not something that appeared on my list, that area in the back of the UK Pavilion, because I know, for example, the Mary Poppins meet and greet is there. Marissa is a huge Mary Poppins fan. It is also my favorite Disney movie of all time. So why don't you talk about that area, why it's so special to you beyond just Mary Poppins?
It's just such a nice little relaxing area. I know they also have the band play there from time to time, and that's really fun to just sit, find a bench, sit, and enjoy that little space that's kind of away from everything. It's a little more peaceful, if you're there when there's not music playing. It's pretty peaceful. You're pretty separated from the bustle of the World Showcase. It's a great place to take a breather, and it's really immersive. You really do feel like you're sitting in a little garden somewhere other than Disney World. It's really special.
And I do like how the UK Pavilion does sort of have a theme, if you're really, really paying attention, where the oldest building is right there by the street. And then as you get back to that area where Marissa is discussing, it gets more and more current. Obviously, it doesn't get to modern day, but you sort of go through a history of architecture in, let's be honest, it's not the whole UK, it's just England, but you go through that history of the architecture, and I think it really does do what an Epcot pavilion should. The other four things Marissa just mentioned, we're going to have plenty of time to talk about them when I mention them, when they're in their proper locations. So I'm going to move on to my 25 through 21. Number 25, I have The Art of Disney, the store, and this is specifically at Disney Springs. There are Art of Disney locations in the parks, but the one at Disney Springs I feel is really, really special. Number 24, also at Disney Springs, Raglan Road. I love this restaurant. It is so good. The entertainment's great. The food is great. Absolutely love it. Number 23, Joffrey's Coffee. There is nothing that puts me in that Walt Disney World mood quite like grabbing a Joffrey's Coffee. Number 22, something that Marissa thinks I have too low on the list, and that's the Tree of Life. And number 21, Mickey Waffles.
Oh, Mickey Waffles is such a good one. That's such a classic, classic Disney food. Ah, good, good one. So the Art of Disney, the one at Disney Springs, why is that one better than the ones in the parks?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I feel like it is something that I want to do if I don't have a park ticket. I don't want to waste my park time on Art of Disney, which is funny because it's higher than a lot of rides that I would experience. But I do think that just being able to go without even having a park ticket and walk around, I also feel like it's just a lot bigger. It almost serves as a museum because honestly, a lot of this stuff is really, really pricey. So you're probably not going to buy a lot of it. I will say a reasonable souvenir that you can get at Art of Disney is the hand-drawn sketches where you can find some really rare characters that maybe you don't get a lot of merch in the parks, and you can get that there. That's kind of affordable, but a lot of the other stuff is pretty expensive. But the one at Disney Springs has a check that Walt wrote to like one of his nieces or nephews for Christmas one year. And by the way, Walt was throwing out $50 for Christmas at a time when that was a lot of money to get from your uncle at Christmas. But anyway, I just think there's so much going on and it's so much more intricate than the ones in the parks. And when I'm in the park, I'll admit it, I want to run from ride to ride. And I don't necessarily want to sit around and look at paintings from the Rocketeer, you know? But I really get excited about that if I'm at Disney Springs.
That's awesome. I have not actually been to that, so I'll have to check that out next time. You sold me on it.
So let's keep the list moving on. What do you have from 20 to 16?
All right, at 20, I have the Epcot Food Festivals, and no, I could not choose just one. I had three that I was going between, so it's best just to say food festivals. 19, I have Mickey's PhilharMagic. 18, Pirates of the Caribbean. 17 is Run Disney, and 16, Flight of Passage.
So much to discuss in this group of 5. So we're about to get a food festival from me, so I'll save judgment on that. Pirates of the Caribbean, and listen, I just came back from a trip to Disneyland, and when you ride the Disneyland Pirates, all of a sudden the Walt Disney World one falls off any list that you have made, because the Disneyland version is so much better. And this isn't just being a Disneyland snob. Like, this is definitely the one ride that is exponentially better at Disneyland than it is at Walt Disney World. So those are my 2 comments there. I would definitely say that the Epcot festivals, it's hard to pick just one. I have 2 on my list. It's funny because a lot of the times we talk about how, oh man, I wish Epcot was just regular. It was just Diet Epcot for a while. But then when we start thinking about the things we really love, it always comes back to those festivals. So
they are great.
And I do think we're starting to see a lot of those things that people who vacation maybe only do one trip in a lifetime, one every few years. Maybe some of these things wouldn't be showing up on their list, but because we get to go so often, we are truly blessed in that way. Things like the festivals bring new life to a park like Epcot. So
absolutely.
I do think that you're seeing a different set of priorities from us than you might see from other people.
I just wanted to defend myself really quick on the Walt Disney World Pirates. So I haven't ridden the Disney one in about a decade. So I don't remember too much about it, except for the fact that we got stuck for like 45 minutes. So one day I'll get back to Disneyland and I'll get to ride that and hopefully not get stuck and have a much better memory of that experience. And it'll just blow Walt Disney World's out of the water because that is something that I hear very, very consistently. All right, what are your next five?
Well, before that, I do want to say that you did get away with having Mickey's PhilharMagic way too high on the list this time. That is
What?
really, really high for Mickey's
Oh,
PhilharMagic.
I love that one. It's just, you can escape the heat. It's really cute. I always get a thrill out of people going for the first time and then seeing Donald in the back after the show ends and all the little kids going, oh my gosh, and laughing over it. It's just a really cute, fun little, I don't know, it's very Disney.
Marissa, I agree with absolutely everything you said about Mickey's PhilharMagic. It is awesome. You had Rise in the 40s. So that's all I'm saying. It's not that it's not a great attraction. It's just you have some really good stuff behind it. But anyway,
But
here we
I
go.
can walk on to Mickey's PhilharMagic with like maybe a 10-15 minute wait. And I don't have to plan my whole day around it or get up at 6:30 in the morning to walk
Touche.
to somewhere with good Wi-Fi or data to try to
Touche.
get my spot.
I love it. This is basically my favorite episode to record. I think we're really having a fun time here debating. Number 20 for me, Cinderella Castle. 19, Living with the Land. That is one that Marissa had way lower on her list. Number 18, Oga's Cantina in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Number 17, to go off your food festivals, I have the Food and Wine Festival. And at number 16, another thing that you had a little lower on your list, Festival of the Lion King.
You have a lot of great ones in there. And I know there's some overlap, but again, I plead the issue with trying to stack 50 things. It's tough. But you have a lot of really, really good ones there. Oga's Cantina, what about that makes it one of your favorite things?
So I've only done this 3 times, 2 on the East Coast, 1 on the West Coast, but it's basically the same experience both places. When you talk Walt Disney World, you talk immersion. And this really feels like, I know it's not the cantina from Star Wars A New Hope. It's not trying to be that cantina, but it does bring that vibe. Like you feel like you're being put in a movie that you haven't even seen yet. And DJ Rex, I remember when DJ Rex was the pilot for Star Tours and just seeing him spin those songs. They'll play the Cantina Band song that is so iconic. That's a word that I've been throwing around a lot on this list, but I think it's important. So much of Walt Disney World is iconic, and when you can find those iconic things, like when I said that they have Coke products, because I think Coke is iconic. And I know a lot of people will debate whether they think Star Wars feels Disney, but I think that's where Star Wars does fit in Disney, is it is this piece of Americana. It's not the Burger King. It is definitely the McDonald's of science fiction franchises, and it just really feels special when you get into Oga's Cantina. Another one that I want to bring up here is Festival of the Lion King, because you said it as well, and this is a show at Disney's Animal Kingdom. It's a Broadway quality show in a theme park where you don't have to pay an extra ticket to see it, and the amount of talent that you get to see on display each and every day inside a theme park is incredible.
100% agree. It is absolutely amazing. And if you go to Animal Kingdom, you have to see this. Do not skip it. Do not leave the park without watching it. Absolutely make the time in your day to go see it. You will not be disappointed.
I tell you what, Marissa, we are in some rarefied air here. As I am looking at my list and what I have here, just imagining what you have on your list. Now, I know that you had Mickey's PhilharMagic in the last 5, so I don't know if you have Amazing Planet from the Land Pavilion or something silly like that, but I jest. Let's hear your next 5.
Yeah, just wait till we get to my number 1 and it's Journey into Imagination. I'm kidding. All right, so 15, I have the Skyliner. 14, I have the Lime Soft Serve, which is dairy-free. 13, I have a Dole Whip. So I'm really getting close here, and I'm going to do it again. 12, I have the Magic Kingdom Halloween decorations specifically. So then 11, I have the Magic Kingdom Christmas decorations. So holiday decorations making an appearance.
I definitely think a lot of people would agree with you on the Dole Whip being that high. It is the first thing a lot of people do when they start their Walt Disney World vacation. Why did you feel the need to include both the Dole Whip and the Lime Soft Serve? I think that was a very interesting selection, and I want to hear a little bit about that.
The pineapple Dole Whip, definitely like you were saying about iconic Disney things, is an iconic Disney thing. When people go to Disney, they get a Dole Whip. They go to Aloha Isle, they get their Dole Whip, they sit and eat it, walking around or watching the fireworks. It's just a part of the Disney experience. But as good as the pineapple is, and I love it, I love pineapple things, that lime is sneakily delicious. And it's a little sweet, it's a little tart. I feel like sometimes you get to the end of your Dole Whip and you think that it's getting a little too sweet. And if that's you, try the lime, because you don't have that. It's got that perfect tart edge to where you finish it and you're like, ooh, I could have eaten more of that. So I think they both deserve to make the list.
Doing a lot of dining reviews lately, I think that sweet but not too sweet is the most underrated descriptor of a Disney dessert, because sometimes Disney desserts are like eating smashed up Smarties. And when you can have something that still satisfies the sweet tooth but doesn't make you feel gross afterwards, threading that needle can be tough, and sometimes Disney doesn't do it well. But try that lime soft serve. I definitely agree with Marissa on that one. And one that I think surprised me that you put up there is the Skyliner, because that is so new. That to really sneak onto the list like that.
Yeah, I moved it up a couple times, and then I moved it back down, and then I moved it back up. I have really enjoyed riding the Skyliner. It's a lot of fun. It surprises me how much I enjoyed it, getting to see those views above the parks, and it's so convenient. If you are at one of the resorts that has a Skyliner station, getting to Epcot, getting to Hollywood Studios, it's a real game changer for resort transportation. And especially, people will complain about the buses not being what they used to be. This eliminates that completely. It's a great, fun new option, and I really enjoy it.
What it has done to those Skyliner resorts is almost hard to describe. There are people in Facebook groups talking about how they hope that since they've delayed the reopening of All-Star Sports, they're like, I hope I get upgraded to Pop. Could you believe it? I might get upgraded to Pop. Like, nobody talked about Pop Century Resort like that before the Skyliner, and now people are excited about the opportunity to stay there, not just having it be the best Disney resort they could afford. Now they're excited to stay there. Caribbean Beach has turned into my favorite moderate resort only because of the Skyliner. I mean, other reasons too. There are things I like about Caribbean Beach, but maybe it was tied with Coronado Springs before, or a lot of people like Port Orleans. But now with that Skyliner access to Epcot and Hollywood Studios, you can't beat that. A lot of the things on the list are not only great in and of themselves, but they make other things better, and the Skyliner is probably one of those. When you initially said it, I was going to question it, but now, thinking about it a little more, I think you probably have it at just the right spot.
All right.
So my number 15 through 11 Number 15, The Haunted Mansion. No explanation needed there. One of the most iconic rides in all Disneydom. Number 14, the Hollywood Brown Derby. Earlier, Marissa had the Hollywood Brown Derby Lounge. I have the restaurant as a whole. Number 13, staying on my restaurant kick. And because I can't separate these two restaurants, I had to have them side by side on my list. Tiffin's at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Number 12, Spaceship Earth. And number 11, something that Marissa also had on her list earlier, Run Disney Races. A lot to unpack here. I have a feeling Tiffin's might show up on Marissa's list. I'm not 100% sure, so we can talk about that a little later. I love Hollywood Brown Derby as a restaurant, not just because the food is great, even though the food is great. But I think in a different time or place, Hollywood Brown Derby could be the icon of Disney's Hollywood Studios because the original restaurant was so intertwined with that legend of Hollywood. I think it really fits there. It is immersive theming by having a signature dining restaurant. You just can't beat that. It's so well themed. I know when Michael Eisner, the old CEO of Disney, when he created what was then MGM Studios, and he had a quote that I absolutely love, that it is a tribute to the Hollywood that never was and always will be. And I think the Hollywood Brown Derby restaurant personifies that. And I skipped over this when Marissa mentioned it earlier, and I just mentioned it here, but Run Disney Races, just talk about that for a brief second.
So Run Disney is the opportunity to run a race through the Disney parks. They make a whole to-do out of it. So you actually go through the parks. They have people cheering. They have music blasting. They have characters out. If you do a longer race, such as the marathon, sometimes they even have rides open. So if you feel very confident about your run time, you can take a break and go ride a ride in the middle of your run. And it is such a unique, wonderful experience. And I know you mentioned before about how blessed we are to go repeatedly, and it allows us to do some new things. And I feel like this is definitely one of those things where if you do go a lot, sometimes you say, okay, let's try this. Let's try a run. Let's do a 5K there. It's so worth it. It is so much fun.
When I did the Princess Half Marathon in February of 2019, I hadn't run a race that long in a long, long time. And I knew at some points I was going to have to do a little bit of a walk run where I wasn't going to be able to just do what I used to do and, blow it out in an hour and a half or a little more than an hour and a half. Okay. But I did set the goal. I'm like, okay, I want to run all the way through Magic Kingdom and get out of Magic Kingdom before I start mixing in the walking. But then I'm running through Frontierland, and there are Chip and Dale in their Western outfits. And I'm like, nope, this is the first stop of the day. This is where I take my first break because I have to meet Chip and Dale in their outfits. And then Marissa and I both did Princess Half Marathon weekend, and that ended up being like 2 weeks before everything shut down for the pandemic. So I'm so happy we got to experience that because they haven't had anything like that back live since then. We're hoping that they get to still do everything for Wine and Dine Half Marathon, but who knows? Anyway, Run Disney, an excellent, excellent event. And it might be that thing to keep your fitness goals on point because you know that when you run down Main Street USA or you run through World Showcase or...
And say, if you run through Animal Kingdom, it's just such an incredible experience to have. And it's pre-park open, so it's just the runners. It's really something very different that you get to experience.
I don't think we've talked enough about the vibe at Walt Disney World, and this is definitely a vibe thing. When you're there with all your fellow runners getting ready to get started, there are still people getting back from the bars on Saturday night when you're running your half marathon on Sunday morning. And it is just such a communal experience. The kind of experience, frankly, we've been missing for the past 18, 19 months since everything happened.
So I know you mentioned Tiffin's, and I mentioned that previously. So let's talk about how amazing that restaurant is. Tell us a little bit about Tiffin's and its concept.
So first of all, the food is not your traditional theme park food. This is very adventurous. It is authentic, or at least we think it's authentic. I imagine it's authentic. The food is top shelf. Marissa and I shared the bread service there, and it was out of this world. It was amazing. I still dream about this bread service sometimes. But beyond the food, the theming is so on point. Joe Rohde, the Imagineer, who basically came up with all of Disney's Animal Kingdom, went on these research trips to Africa and Asia. And there are pictures from those trips. There's concept art for some of the attractions, some of the rides. There are pillars that were going to be all around Disney's Animal Kingdom, and we're going to have animals carved into them. But instead of doing those pillars, they decided to incorporate all of those animal carvings into the Tree of Life, which is the icon of Disney's Animal Kingdom. And now they have these pillars in the restaurant. If you love Animal Kingdom, Marissa, I think it is her favorite park at this point. And for me, I really, really love the concepts of Disney's Animal Kingdom. Much like Hollywood Brown Derby just fits the theme of its theme park so well. Tiffin's does that in Animal Kingdom, and it is signature dining. It is probably the best dining in all of Walt Disney World.
Yeah, you really cannot say enough good things about the food. I really think it's impossible to overhype how good that food is. Like, I know you mentioned that bread service, and oh my gosh, I still think about it all the time. I crave it. I'm like, oh man, I really could go for this right now. It's excellent. And like you said, it just fits the park so well and gives you that inside, deeper look at planning the park and these park elements. And if you're looking for a really unique, incredible dining experience at Disney, this is the place to go.
There are a lot of signature dining restaurants in Walt Disney World, and if you're looking to have that one special meal on your trip, yes, there's California Grill at the Contemporary Resort. It's amazing. I know everybody loves Be Our Guest and Cinderella's Royal Table, but I am going to say I think in both of those situations, the location is what you're getting. Hollywood Brown Derby and Tiffin's are the two signature dining, so expensive dining restaurants where I still think you get the best bang for your buck. You get the best food and atmosphere for how much money you're spending. I think we also have to throw the new Space 220 in with those signature dining locations, because right now that is the big hot property item that's almost impossible to get a reservation. But the thing about Tiffin's, the thing about Hollywood Brown Derby, you can sometimes get reservations to these restaurants, especially in not so busy times. Anecdote, I was recently looking at booking a dining reservation on the 50th anniversary at one of the resorts because I didn't have a theme park reservation, and I saw Tiffin's show up on October 1st as a reservation that I could have gotten like 7 days beforehand. So it's not the hardest reservation to get, and it is one of the best dining experiences. As I mentioned earlier, we will finish our countdowns next week in episode 37. Thanks for joining us again today, Marissa. I didn't want to go too long with the countdown today because we needed to make some time to mention some things that are more recent and top of mind. Friend of the show, Jillian, was at Epcot on October 1st and 2nd for the 50th anniversary, and I wanted to get her thoughts on everything. How are you doing today, Jillian?
Oh, no problem. Love to be here.
So you were one of the lucky ones who had the opportunity to go to a Walt Disney World theme park on October 1st for the 50th anniversary. First of all, what park did you attend?
I was at Epcot on the 1st.
So I ran into a weird situation where my annual pass wasn't going to be able to be renewed until a certain amount. And by the time I was able to renew my annual pass, I couldn't get a reservation for October 1st. And yes, there were little tricks I could have pulled to do it, but I didn't do that. And I was not able to be in a theme park, but I get to live vicariously through you. So the first thing, how are the crowds?
For Epcot, it seemed like a normal day to me. Like just walking in, I was really nervous parking and everything, thinking it was going to be crazy after everything I heard about Magic Kingdom. But it really wasn't that bad. It seemed like a nice normal day, and it stayed that way pretty much throughout the day.
Did you notice, besides some of the things that have been there for a couple weeks now, like the statues, but besides any of that, did you notice anything special going on, a special vibe because it was the 50th?
Yeah, I kind of feel like it definitely, it sounds funny, but it was in the air. It kind of feels like everyone was talking about it. Like everyone you pass by, it's what they were talking about. The photo pass line, because that's what I had to do as soon as I walked in, was get my pictures. And it seemed like everybody, was there for that reason.
Yeah, that was a funny thing that even not being in a theme park and following along with wait times and all the stuff on social media about what was happening inside the theme parks, is it definitely seemed like the line for Big Thunder Mountain wasn't as bad as the line for a popcorn bucket in Magic Kingdom.
Yes, that's
None of
exactly
the
what I heard.
rides seemed to have huge lines in any of the parks. People were 15 minutes on to Flight of Passage in Animal Kingdom 3 hours after the park opened. So that definitely seems to be those photo pass opportunities, and a lot of that stuff was where people were gravitating. I have a little bit of a theory that most of the people who really care about the 50th anniversary and really wanted to put forth the effort to be there that day probably ride the rides enough and didn't feel that need. But another new thing that did debut just around that time, and you got to experience it, we experienced it together the following night,
Yeah.
is the brand new fireworks show, Harmonious. There are a lot of mixed reviews going around the internet for Harmonious. What did you think about it?
I thought it was a great show. The effects and the music and the emotion, I can admit, I believe were comparable to, say, Illuminations, although I'm of course biased towards that. But it's a huge, show stopping thing. It looks amazing, you feel amazing. To me, it's what you want out of like a fireworks show at Disney World. I think they did a great job with it.
When I saw it with you the following night, what impressed me was I watched the live stream that Disney put online, and then I saw it in person, and I felt like you didn't get the full feel of how many pyrotechnics were going on in that show if you just watched the live stream. There's a lot.
Yep. Yes, there is. There's a ton, which is great for me because I enjoy the fireworks almost more than the other effects.
Now, one thing I will say is it definitely feels like there's certain places that you want to be to see the effects in all their glory. We just sat around the France Pavilion because we just got some snacks when we watched it, so we weren't really trying to be up close. But because there were so many pyrotechnics, we had
Got to
this.
see it.
Yeah, we had the same enjoyment of it, honestly.
Yeah.
And both days, both Friday, October 1st, and the following day, you got to experience the brand new Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. And of course, you also did an annual pass holder preview for it. But you got to experience boarding groups, deal with all of that that's happening now, have that section open to the general public. What did you think about Remy's Ratatouille Adventure and the area?
Honestly, again, nothing but positives for me. I think the whole area, the design and everything is beautiful. I think it's a great addition to the World Showcase. The ride is very cute. It's a great kids ride. It's perfect for the movie Ratatouille if you're a Ratatouille fan. Um, Great for kids. and I like the effects of being shrunk down to that size and being in that world. It's a cute ride. It's not a, big thrill ride, but it's a great kids ride again, and good to enjoy with friends or anybody, family.
And I do think that the parks have been adding a lot of e-ticket rides, a lot of big rides, and some of these smaller rides that aren't necessarily hour, 2 hour waits. It's nice to have a few of them. Now, this is the bright, shiny new thing, so it will have long waits. We actually ran into a strange situation. We got our boarding group at 1 o'clock in the afternoon because I'll be honest, I overslept on Saturday morning and was not ready at 7 o'clock to get the boarding groups. And the ride was breaking down periodically throughout the day. So they called a whole bunch of boarding groups around our same time. And we did wait a little while to get on it.
That was my longest wait because that was the third time I rode it in a row, and that definitely was my. It was packed. That whole area was just a sea of people when we walked in there.
I think that they were trying to make sure that everybody who got a boarding group got to ride it. I understand what they were trying to do, but you expect when there are boarding groups that you don't have to wait that long. And I do think after a few months, once all the first culture gets washed away here,
Yeah.
it's going to return to just be a regular ride. I don't think this is going to be like Frozen that's going to have hour and a half wait times all
Yeah.
the time.
No, I don't think that either.
And then on Saturday, we were in a group of 4. It was our friend Scott, and then my wife Courtney, and then the two of us. We took advantage of the special Visa photo opportunity where they also have a special magic shot for the 50th. While I was in some of these pictures, I have not seen them yet. But Jillian, you got to see them, and how do they look? What's the magic shot?
They're so cute. They have you and Courtney looking off to the side where you're looking at something, and it's Mickey and Goofy in their 50th finery in their special little suits with the 50th logo, and one of them's holding the 50th logo. It's like it's the cutest thing ever. Like, so it's right by the Imagination Pavilion, right by the Figment ride. So if you have a Disney Visa card, I'm not a plug for that, but if you have a Disney Visa card or a Disney debit card, go there, show them the card, and they'll get you the special shot because they're not doing meet and greets with characters right now.
And this is also a great opportunity to bring up Tina from North Fork, New York, who was our PhotoPass photographer. This was the cast member who took these pictures, and she was awesome. She was really personable. She made it very comfortable, except for when she was trying to guess who was in a relationship with whom. Then it got a little awkward, but besides that, it was really, really fun, and she was great. She was awesome. I made sure to take a picture of her badge because I wanted to mention her when we talked about this. I cannot imagine what the cast members were going through that entire weekend, and the fact that we still had so many great ones, because we've all heard the stories of the fist fights at the Emporium and the eBayers and all of that stuff, and they all kept their cool and were so good, so professional, brought the magic all weekend long. I don't know how they did it.
It's a special kind of person who can face that kind of negativity, especially when you hear so much about the negativity. And then you still know there's so many good people who work there who still, brought it for every guest there.
And I would also like to bring up, with all the negativity in the Disney fan community, you also have to remember that the majority of people who go there are just looking to have fun and aren't looking to cause problems or be a hassle. And even the fans themselves, you hear about the people who punched somebody in the Emporium, but most people weren't doing that. So
yeah, sensationalism like anything else.
Exactly. And we hear so much about the negatives that so many people were just there having a really, really good time at the parks. And I noticed very few problems on Saturday. I went on Friday to Cape May Cafe at the Beach Club Resort because I didn't have a park pass reservation, and I knew that Jillian was going to be in Epcot, And I thought, well, at least we can go meet and take a selfie for the 50th at International Gateway. But you ended up oversleeping that day or being late for some other reason. So we didn't get to meet up that day. But all the professionalism that I saw from the cast members and the excitement, I wasn't even in a theme park on the 50th, and I could feel that vibe. I am going to tell you the honest truth here, and I can't believe I'm admitting this. They put my Mickey waffles in front of me for breakfast at Cape May Cafe, and I started to tear up a little bit. So,
That's a good thing, though. That's a good thing, though.
It was just an emotional day and an emotional weekend to be at the theme parks because we do really love these things. And I actually think, in addition to talking about some of the guests and talking about the cast members, a great way to end this segment would be on Saturday. Courtney and I met up with you. We met up with Scott. And at one point we met up with our buddy Ken. And none of these are people that I would know Courtney. But none of these other people were people I would know if it wasn't for these theme parks. So as we talk about the 50th anniversary and how important Walt Disney World is to us, it's not really even about rides, and it's not about special 50th anniversary cupcakes, although those things are important. What's really important is it's a place where a bunch of people can come together and you hopefully find the good ones. And I found some of the good ones, and I really appreciate that you're one of them.
And I told you this at Regal Eagle on Saturday too. Didn't I have my moment when we were eating our barbecue? I told you that it's the friendships that I've made because of this place, this magical place that means so much to me now. And they do. I'm glad to have you and Scott and Courtney and Ken and so many other people I'm glad to have met.
It really does create a sense of community, and that's what's really fun about it. So thank you for joining me again, and I'm glad you got to experience such an historic day.
I'm glad I got to experience some of that with you. Thank you, bestie.
I really can't stress enough how much I appreciate all of the friends that I have in my life because of Walt Disney World. Jillian, Marissa from Chicago, Sarah from Seattle, Jeff, Carmen, Ken, Scott, Miranda, Amanda from Scotland, Christina, and many others you've heard on the show, and some who you haven't heard on the show. The parks are almost secondary to the relationships that come from sharing something you love with good people. This has been episode 36 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. We will have that brand new episode next Thursday when Marissa and I will finish our lists of 50 favorite things at Walt Disney World. Until then, have a great week.